Looks good. Hi, my name's Helen. I'm a chef tutor here at the Waitrose and Partners Cookery School. Today I'm going to show you how to make baguettes. This is one of my favourite recipes to make. I actually spent some time in my early 20s working in Paris in a patisserie, and I had to get up at kind of 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work, and this is the smell that would wake me up. So it's a very nostalgic one for me. So we're going to start by getting all of our dry ingredients ready together in a bowl. So we've got some strong white flour, add 10 grams of salt. Next up is the yeast. We're using an easy bake yeast today. You could substitute this for a dried active yeast. That would require kind of rehydrating in some water before you add it to everything else. And so if you wanted to substitute it for this recipe, you would use about 5 grams of dried active instead of the 7-gram sachet of easy bake. So to this, we're going to make a little well in the center, and then we're going to pour in 360 mils of tepid water. And then we'll start to work the dough together using a dough scraper, trying to keep hands nice and clean for this initial stage. It's a fantastic bread for beginners, so it's a little bit simpler than the traditional way of making baguettes, which would require kind of overnight fermentation. This is going to be kind of from mixing to eating in under 3 hours, which is a massive advantage. Once everything's come together in a mass like this, it's time to tip it out onto the bench. I'm not going to dust it with anything, so I don't want the dough to absorb any more flour at this stage. Because it's so wet and sticky, we're going to work it in a slightly different way. So we're going to use our hands, kind of like forks, to pick it up from underneath, and then literally throw it down, stretch it out, and fold it in on itself. This is definitely a place to take out some of your frustrations. This can take anything from 5 to 10 minutes, and every so often you want to make sure that you're using that dough scraper to just walk the dough around the bench and capture any bits that might be starting to dry out, and see if you can get it to be nice and smooth on the surface. If I were to run my hand under some cool water and press into it gently, it's already springing back. And another good telltale sign is that you can see that curve against the edge of the bench. So it's actually holding itself up a little bit. That tells me that it's ready to start its first proof. It's going to go in here and get covered until it has almost doubled in volume. So my dough's been proving for about an hour now. You can see that it's really well risen. Time to roll these out. So a nice bit of flour on the work surface to begin with. Once it's out of the bowl, we're going to kind of divide it up into 8. Have a little check on the sizing. If you can see that any are clearly bigger than others, you can fix that at this stage. So I now need to give them a little bit of initial shaping, and this is to build a bit of tension in the dough so that they rise really well later on. So we want to make them into a nice ball shape. The best way to do this is to stretch the outer edge of the dough and fold it in on itself, and do this all the way around the dough. We only put flour on the bench, but not on the top, so that it can hold itself together once we do those folds. And then I'm just going to kind of press it around on the bench a little bit, trying to develop a little bit of a seam at the bottom. So keeping a drier piece of bench for this without any flour on it, really helpful. So while they rest, I'm going to prepare what's known as a couche. This is basically a flat, well-floured towel, and I'm going to line them up so we'll have 8 baguettes running down the tray like this, and I need a little bit of overhang because I'm going to fold it inwards as I go. So from here I'll take some flour and just make sure that my towel is really well dusted so that they don't stick. It's pretty heartbreaking when you get this far and then you can't get them off the towel. So the pre-shaped dough has now had an opportunity to relax. Now we can roll it out really easily. So I'll start with the first one. I'm basically going to press it out into a kind of oval shape using the palm of my hand. And then once we've got this initial shape, I'm going to fold the top half over and just press it into place. And then we'll turn it around, do the same with the other half. And now we need to do the final shape by folding the whole thing in half. So I'm going to use my thumbs in the center and draw half of the dough over the top and then press into it to create a seam. So from here we're going to kind of press really firmly from the center, even pressure as we go out, and to about the length of the tray that we're using. And then to taper the ends, it's all about pressing the outer edges of your hands into the dough. Now I'll try and find where that seam was so I can put it at the bottom. I'll lay it on top of my couche and just fold that towel up and the next one will sit right next to it. I think you have to do it a few hundred times for it to be, for it to feel really, really natural. But I think with bread making, practice makes perfect. So final one's going on the tray there, so they're sitting nice and snug. My baguettes have now risen for about 45 minutes. You can see that they're doubled in volume and they're ready to go onto trays and be baked. So I've got a preheated oven ready for them to go into, and I'm just going to gently transfer them by opening up the cloth and lifting from underneath. So they are considerably more delicate now that they've been proven a second time. There's lots and lots of air in there. And once we've got them onto the trays, we're actually going to score the surfaces of them. Using a serrated knife doesn't tend to snag on the dough as much. I'm going to go for really long diagonal cuts across the dough, as deep as I can go in one swift motion. The scoring is a really important part of the process because it allows the dough to open out when it goes into the oven. So we've got tons and tons of water in there, which is going to turn into steam, and that needs somewhere to go so the baguettes can open up and be really nice and airy rather than very dense and doughy. So they need to go into the oven at about 240 degrees or as hot as your oven will go, and it will take anything from 12 to 15 minutes for them to develop a really nice golden crust. For the full recipe, click the link in the description. So you can see that they've come out of the oven. They took about 15 minutes, and the best way to tell if they're done is to look for the colour of them. So you want really nice golden caramel crust. You could give them a little tap on the base, and that will tell you if it sounds really nice and hollow, then they're cooked all the way through. Really good bread should speak for itself, so I think the best way to serve these is with a little bit of salted butter. So this is how I'm going to eat mine. It smells absolutely unbelievable.